Jednu od ključnih istraživačkih grupa Centra za proučavanje teških jona u Darmstadtu, odsjek za biofiziku, već godinama vodi profesor Marko Durante. Tamo gdje su stali njegovi čuveni prethodnici, koji su 90. godina prošlog vijeka ušli u nesvakidašnji poduhvat liječenja pacijenata oboljelih od kancera snopovima teških jona i to u naučnom centru, nastavio je profesor Durante, koji je od 2007. direktor odsjeka za biofiziku GSI-a. Liječenja su odavno izmještena u specijalizovane klinike, a u centru je nastavljen rad na unapređivanju hadronske terapije. Profesor Durante potpisuje 300 naučnih radova, vodi projekte sa oznakom najelitnijih naučnih dostignuća, kao što je ERC Synergy, radi na zanimljivim istraživanjima koja prate efekte kombinovanja terapije teškim jonima sa vakcinom protiv kancera. Terapija teškim jonima veoma je produktivna sa stanovišta fizike jer omogućava da se maksimalna doza zračenja precizno isporuči u maligne tumore uz čuvanje okolnih zdravih tkiva. Pored toga, ona ima i dodatne prednosti.
What are the advantages of heavy ion therapy from a biological point of view?
The carbon ions are heavy and especially they have many protons, so they have a high charge. So they deposit a lot of energy by electromagnetic interaction in a very dense way. So it will be like, imagine the DNA is here, and imagine that with protons you have sparse ionizations, but with carbon you will have very dense ionization. So this makes the damage to the DNA very difficult to repair because you have many lesions in the DNA. And so this makes the carbon very effective in killing tumors. So carbons will be preferable when you have very radioresistant tumors that you cannot treat with conventional radiation, and you need this special type of radiation.
Let's mention that heavy ion therapy has been especially effective for head and neck tumors. Why?
Head and neck is a very good site for treatment with particles in general, because because in head and neck you have a lot of sensitive organs at risk. Every time you treat the tumor in the head and neck, you have toxicity. You have mucositis, you have esophagitis if you treat this tract here, you have inflammation. So it's very nice to use particles because, of course, you can spare a lot of normal tissue and have much lower toxicity. Moreover, the typical tumors that were treated here at GSI, these are skull-based chordomas and chondrosarcomas, they are very radiation resistant. So it's a very good example of the power of this carbon ion therapy.
Apart from patients with non-operable tumors and tumors that are extremely resistant to conventional radiotherapy, typical patients include children and pregnant women. Why?
Because, of course, for pediatric patients you have a risk of late effects, because these patients are supposed to live for many years. So you are worried about second cancers, for example. Or in case of brain tumors, which are very common in young children, you don't want to irradiate the whole head, because then the IQ of the babies will be strongly reduced, and they will have problems at school and in the rest of their life. So we much prefer to use protons, because then you only radiate the tumor and you spare all the normal brain from radiation. Another problem is the radiation of pregnant women, where indeed if you use conventional radiation, you will give a very high dose to the fetus, which is very sensitive to radiation, but you can do the treatment for pregnant women with particles, giving essentially zero dose to the fetus. It can look like it's a very rare event, but here in Germany, you have more pregnant women irradiated with radiotherapy than patients with chordoma. A few hundreds of women in Germany need radiotherapy while they are pregnant, and they are mostly treated in Heidelberg with particles, because you don't want to treat them with X-rays, because the dose to the fetus will be too high.
Your research group exploits the accelerator in two completely different aspects. On one hand, you use particles to cure tumors. On the other hand, you learn how to protect astronauts from the same particles in space. How do you actually explore health in deep space?
GSI is the reference facility for the European Space Agency to study protection of the astronauts. Protection of the astronauts now is becoming more and more a priority because the next steps will be to go to the moon, to return to the moon, now with a permanent basis, and then to go to Mars. And radiation is very high, is extremely high. I mean, this is essentially a showstopper at the moment. We could not go to Mars with the present technology because the dose would be too high. So what can we do? That's what we are studying here. We simulate galactic cosmic rays here with our accelerators, and then we use shielding, for example. We look for new materials that can be effective as shielding of cosmic radiation. So at the moment, the priorities of the space agencies are toward exploration. So we will go back to the moon, in principle already next year with the Artemis program, and then we will make a permanent base on the moon. And at the same time, of course, we want to go to Mars. For the first time, we want to visit the next planet, which is Mars. This is possible from the technological point of view. So we have the right technology to do it. Private industries are also involved, like SpaceX, you know, Elon Musk, and also Jeff Bezos. But radiation remains a big problem, because radiation in space is hundreds times higher than radiation on Earth. 1 day in space is like one year on Earth. So if you have a very long trip to Mars, which is going to be like 3 years, the dose will be extremely high, much higher, for example, than the dose that the liquidators of Fukushima received. So this is going to be a big problem. How can we solve the problem? You can say, okay, we just use shielding, you know. We use shielding as we use shielding on Earth. We use shielding in our accelerator. But when you will visit our accelerator, you will see that the walls are 3 meters thick in concrete. Can we have 3 meters thick concrete walls on a spacecraft? Of course, it's impossible, because that will be incredibly heavy, and being heavy is the main problem for a spacecraft, because the cost of the launch is directly proportional to the weight. The heavier is the spacecraft, the more expensive is everything, or even impossible if you think I'm having concrete 3 meters about a spacecraft. So we have to find solutions to protect the astronauts without compromising the mission. What are we afraid of, first of all? First, we are afraid of cancer, the risk of cancer. Of course, they're exposed to this cosmic radiation, they can develop cancer later on. Second, we are afraid of effects to normal tissue, like effect to the heart and to the central nervous system. There is evidence that radiation can affect the brain, and this is of course very scary, you know, for an astronaut, the idea that radiation can compromise your brain. Finally, we even have to be careful about lethal effects, because if there is a solar particle event, a solar eruption, this can be even lethal for the astronauts. You probably know this Fantastic Four movie or comics. Fantastic Four is funny because they are in space and they are hit by a solar particle event, which are protons that hit them. And then, of course, in the cartoon and in the movie, they develop superpowers, you know, like being invisible at will, or they can make long arms or rocks. In the reality, this is not going to happen. What is going to happen is that the astronauts are going to die. So how can we avoid it? I mean, we have to develop countermeasures for this risk, and countermeasures can be physical countermeasures, like new materials for light shielding which is not too heavy but very effective, or pharmacological countermeasures, so drugs that make you resistant to radiation. It's not an easy task, but we are working very hard here with many research centers and many companies that are developing these new drugs for protection to radiation. Another approach that I like very much is to say, okay, why don't we do like on the Earth? The Earth is very well protected by cosmic rays. How? Thanks to the magnetic field. We have a very nice magnetic field that protects us from the Earth, from the cosmic rays in space. Can we have the same for a spacecraft or for a moon base, to have a very strong magnetic field that protects the base or the spacecraft from these cosmic rays? In principle, it's possible, but of course you need a very strong magnetic field, and it's not so easy to make these strong magnetic fields without superconductive magnets, so you need superconductivity, so it becomes a technological challenge. But this is what we need to do before we will be able to go on Mars, and even before we will be able to live on the moon on a permanent basis.
You and your colleagues have been working on combining radiotherapy and immunology. That means that in the future heavy ions therapy might be combined with vaccines. What is the idea behind this research?
We take primary tumors and metastases. So we irradiate the primary tumor, so the tumor that started and from which you had this metastasis. We irradiate it with heavy ions, which gives a powerful punch to destroy the primary tumor, and we use in combination the mRNA vaccine to remove the residual cells that are spread in the body and that cannot be removed by radiation or surgery, because you cannot irradiate the whole body and you cannot make surgery in every site in the body. So if you want to be really effective, you have to take it from the single patient. So it's what we call personalized medicine at the extreme. So I will develop a vaccine that is only good for you and is only good for this specific tumor. Okay, so unfortunately it's not a preventive vaccine, so I don't give it before you get the tumor. It's a curative vaccine, but exactly because it's so specific, it is supposed to be so effective, because it will specifically attack the tumor that this specific patient has. You have a tumor, a specific tumor of that specific person, you take a biopsy, so now you take the RNA from the tumor, you put it in the liposome, you re-inject it in the patient. Now the immune system recognizes that RNA as a danger, builds up your immune system to destroy the tumor. That's wonderful. But the problem in oncology is that the primary tumor, the mass of the primary tumor, you have to destroy it. It's too large, it's too big. So the idea is to combine heavy ion therapy on the primary tumor with the mRNA vaccine for the metastasis. And this can be a very interesting approach for advanced cancers, stage 3 or stage 4, which is metastatic cancers, where radiotherapy alone is insufficient because the cancer is spread in the body, so you cannot treat everything. Immunotherapy alone is unable to destroy everything, but in combination they can be extremely effective. So that's now what we are doing with the BioNTech, which is very close to our place in GSI, it's only 1 hour drive. So there we are still working in animal models, of course, but we are trying to build specific vaccines for a specific tumor and to combine it with radiotherapy. And we hope that if successful, this can go into the clinics.
Is actually timing relevant here? In other words, what would be the best sequence of these two therapeutical approaches?
Yeah, this is a very good question, but a very difficult answer, because that's exactly what we are studying now. We are trying to understand whether it's better to give the vaccine first and radiation after, or giving radiation first and vaccine after. It's not so easy to answer this question, but that's exactly why we are doing research now. We are trying to understand the best sequence. What is the most effective sequence of local treatment and systemic treatment. Let's say local treatment is radiotherapy and systemic treatment is mRNA vaccine.
Could this vaccine be used as a preventive measure for patients who have a tumor but do not have metastasis?
The problem is that sometimes you don't see the metastasis in the patients, but they're already there. They are, very small, and they are somewhere. So when you do a scintigraphy or a PET, you don't see the metastasis today, but in 1 year you will have metastasis. So if we could use it also in these patients, we will have a sort of preventive, as you say. I mean, in the sense that we kill the metastasis before they will be visible in imaging, in conventional imaging techniques.
You explained that this therapeutical procedure was personalized. Does it make it expensive?
Of course, it's not going to be very cheap, but you have to keep in mind that targeted therapy now, so the drugs that are replacing chemotherapy and that are not so personalized, but they are still pretty personalized, you go in cost in the order of 50,000, 60,000, 100,000 euro per treatment. So it's already very expensive, of course. So in principle, this will be expensive, but I don't think will be very expensive. We have seen with the COVID vaccine, the COVID vaccine that was produced in billions to cover the whole population, at the end was relatively cheap for the user. So the technique of mRNA vaccine is not so expensive. So I think this treatment will be easily affordable for the health system.
Professor Durante, as a famous expert in this field, you wholeheartedly supported the idea of SEIST Institute. How do you perceive the potential of this project?
I think SEIST was a great idea, especially because it was an R&D, research and development program, with clinical translational potential. This is very important because if we look at the clinical application only, as I said before, this therapy is very nice but very expensive. So in countries that are not fully developed in their national health systems, one can argue and say, why you want to spend so many millions in this special clinical project while we need more conventional radiotherapy in every city, we need more hospitals, we need more beds, and this is reasonable, this is understandable. But the idea of SEIST was to build an infrastructure for research and development with applications in the clinical environment. I think this is brilliant, because if you take CERN, for example, that is a wonderful infrastructure for research, but not really with the practical applications, at least not in the short term. While the idea that was behind SEIST was to say we make an infrastructure for applied research so that we build a site where the young people from our countries and even young people from foreign countries, from Western Europe, from US, from Asia, can come and doing experiments. And this kind of research will not be just pure research, but can be translated into the clinics. And we will also have the clinics, so we will also treat patients, so we can see the benefit quickly. What we are doing now, for example, with the mRNA vaccine plus radiotherapy, will be very nice for me to have a clinics here, so that first I do the experiment in animals, and then if I'm successful, I can translate it into the clinics immediately. This was the idea of SEIST, make a preclinical study, research in physics, in biology, in chemistry, in engineering, and then to translate these results quickly into the clinical environment. I think it's a great challenge for the Balkan region, for the Southeastern Europe region. I still think that is a brilliant idea, because I still think that is money that is very well spent. At the end, spending your money in R&D, in research and development, will improve the whole general condition of the country. After all, countries like the United States or Japan became leading worldwide with their economy because they invested in R&D. So the investment in R&D is absolutely welcome, and investing in infrastructure is even more important than investing in fellowships or, grants to students, because eventually it is with the infrastructures that we do good science, and it is with the infrastructures that we can allow people to work. So these projects will create jobs, highly qualified jobs. Education will increase the number of professionals interested in STEM, in these scientific topics. Will slow down the brain drain from the Southeastern Europe to the Western Europe, and instead we will have a brain flow from the other direction. So I will go to SAIS to do my experiments. My students will go to SAIS to do my experiments. This is very important. I want to stress the brain drain from Southeastern Europe to Western Europe only shows that in Southeastern Europe there is a lot of smart people, and they are also well educated. So we want them, and they want to come because we have good infrastructure for research. But if you build your own infrastructures, you will see an inverse flux, and eventually this is what you want. You will be more than happy to take Germans, French, Italians, British that come to your place to work. This is exactly what you want if you want to grow your economy in general. So this is a real amazing challenge, I think. And eventually I hope that this will become like this my department here. You have seen in my department I have people coming from all over the world. I have 16 or 17 different nationalities. I don't even remember, and that's what should happen also in SAIS. They don't come for me; they come for the infrastructure, of course.
Yes, you often stress that a career of a scientist is primarily infrastructure driven, and your own career is a good example. Could you share your story with our audience?
I was studying nuclear physics in Italy. I'm originally from Naples, which is a city south of Rome. Very good university, but not many infrastructures. So I was studying nuclear physics, and I was fascinated by the applications of nuclear physics in health. That's what I really wanted to do. This was my dream. I wanted to use nuclear physics to cure people, to improve the health. So after my degree, I was attracted by Berkeley because, as I said before, in the Lawrence Berkeley lab, they were treating patients with accelerated particles. So I did my PhD in Berkeley. Then my PhD supervisor at that time was hired by NASA because, of course, the same particles that we were using to kill tumors were a danger for astronauts. Then I followed him in Houston at the NASA Johnson Space Center to work there. Then I went to Japan again. That was the best infrastructure available for clinical and research applications of heavy ion beam. And then eventually here at GSI, which is, as I said, the primary European infrastructures in this field. So again, all my career was done following the best place to work. That's what happens with scientists. Scientists have ambitions, have goals, and they try to go in the places that offer the best possible opportunities. It's exactly like for football. In football, you have good players, and they go in the best teams. They want to play for Real Madrid rather than for Juventus, because of course these are very good teams, and they are good players, and so they move. It's normal in football, but it's also perfectly normal in science. So again, you don't have to be worried if people from Montenegro goes to Germany. You have to be sorry if nobody from Germany goes to Montenegro. That's an ideal situation where scientists move going to work in that place that offers the best match to my own desire, to my own ambitions, to my own ideas.
Professor Durante, you have been leading one of the best scientific groups in this field in the world. You produce exceptional scientific results. Do you still have professional dreams? What is yet to be achieved?
Ideally, I would like to see the mission to Mars, maybe with the new shielding that we are developing here at GSI, and I want to see more particle therapy. I would like to see the day where we consider cancer not anymore a fatal disease, but where we consider cancer a disease that can be definitely beaten. All my family died of cancer, all of them. So I can easily say that I will probably be a cancer patient sooner or later, because there is a strong genetic component in cancer. So I want to do it for the memory of my family, for my own sake. I want to reach the point where we will be able to defeat cancer. I don't know if I will see these days, probably not, but I want to try. I want to try until the end. I mean, this is a goal. Everybody has to have ambitions in life. No, you must have a goal which is maybe too high, but you have to pursue that goal, and maybe you will have the little piece on the way to that result. I'm sure sooner or later this will happen. I'm sure we will go to Mars, and I'm sure we will cure cancer for good. Hopefully I will see it. Otherwise, I can say I gave a small contribution to it.